The beginning of the Lahai-Roi arc was a bit of a bumpy ride because version 3.0 had some issues as an introduction. But then 3.1 came in and players were praising it to the moon. After that, 3.2 felt like a needed break to let things settle before the final chapter. And because of that, version 3.3 had a lot on its shoulders. It was supposed to be the grand finale of the Lahai-Roi arc, the patch that brings the destruction of Aleph-1, saving Aemeath, the closure for Exostrider, and Rover's role in the story all together. So, did it actually live up to those expectations? Well, in some ways, yes. But in some ways, not completely. Some scenes needed more time, some characters deserved a little bit more presence, and some emotional moments could have hit even harder with better pacing. But despite that, I think 3.3 did something extremely important for Wuthering Waves' narrative, because it challenged one of the biggest criticisms players had about it since the beginning. And this is exactly what we are going to talk about today. What the story quest itself presented, what worked, what did not fully work, how the idea of hero above all heroes was challenged this time, and why Hiyuki's role is a contrast to Rover, and whether saving Aemeath was truly the emotional payoff we have been waiting for since 3.1. Good morning, my little starlights, it's yours truly, Luminara here. Take your tea or coffee and let us get started. I honestly think 3.3 is one of the strongest main quests Wuthering Waves had so far, especially in terms of direction, presentation, and emotional payoff. Visually, the new area is stunning. It has this overworldly, magical feeling that works really well as a contrast to Starter's Academy and Roi of Frostland we had before. It immediately makes the final part of the Lahai-Roi feel different. The music also hits way harder than I expected, because during moments like the fight with Dania, for example, or final confrontation with Aleph-1, I actually did not want to finish those fights, you know? I didn't mind to be punched in the face and listening to the great music in the background, because when this quest wants to feel grand, it really does feel grand. The awakening of the Exostrider, Aemeath and her shell interacting with Rover, Hiyuki confronting her own failure and choosing to burn away a possible future that could have given her an enormous amount of power for the sake of her humanity, and of course a final fight with Aleph-1. Those moments work because they are not just visually impressive, they are connected to what the story is actually trying to say. For example, I really liked how the Exostrider awakening showed that Rover is special, but without making them the only hero of the entire story. But we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the next chapter. These moments were when 3.3 worked beautifully, but it also had a little bit of a problem. I really believe that it rushed its own emotions. And in the comments, you expressed the same thoughts. The final chapter sometimes feels like it is trying to close too many arcs at once, and for me, Dania is probably the best example. Like, her boss fight is the strongest part of it. The atmosphere, the music, like I mentioned, all those things are amazing. I have to give the credit where the credit is due. The idea behind Dania being made to be a Trinodian resonator, being unstable, and Fraxidus only using her as a device is a very strong one. Her boss fight is strong. The atmosphere around her is strong, but I still feel like the story could have built her a little bit more before throwing us into this dramatic part of her role, or maybe save it to the after story somehow, at least some parts of it, because her whole section still feels a little bit awkwardly placed. Like I mentioned, not because Dania herself is bad, but for example, this platforming, chasing sequence and the mini-game around her felt more like an interruption to the main arc than the natural escalation of the main conflict. So for me, Dania is a good example of 3.3's biggest issue. The ideas are strong, but sometimes the story does not give them enough build-up or enough room to breathe. There is a very specific thing that makes 3.3 more interesting than many other quests we witnessed before, because it takes one of the biggest criticisms players had toward Rover and explains it in a different light. You know, Rover is often treated like the center of every answer, the person who arrives, fixes everything, saves the day, and becomes a solution to everything. But at the beginning of the 3.3, this exact narrative is what Grand Architects tried to sell to Hiyuki. That Rover is the only savior. Rover is the only one who can currently succeed. Rover is the one who can do what no one else can do. Which is a lie. And Lahai-Roi shows it. After 3.0, I really think that this region stopped feeling like a passive place waiting for Rover to come and save it. We learned that people here have been fighting the Trinodian threat long before we arrived, and they had plans if the threat ever become critical. Researchers gave their lives for data. Aemeath sacrificed herself. Hiyuki kept burning pieces of her own future to protect others. Sigrika is learning how to become the successor of Heliodic 6, sacrificing her own freedom, and Lucilla is taking precautions to save the students, while Luke is working in the shadows to gather information. And the story shows that by letting us fail first. In the middle of the quest, it genuinely feels like we failed. I, for example, had no idea what happened. And the thing that actually saves us is one of the most human things we could imagine. Rover's bond with Aemeath. A bond between a parent and a child, the years of research work, and the sacrifices of all of those people coming together. Because of that, we are able to try again. This is a story where humanity survives because people keep leaving something behind for those who will follow. Damn, Expedition 33 or something? And I think this hits the hardest at the very end when we get the additional interaction with Aemeath, because she basically confirms the true meaning of this arc. This was not a story where humanity is saved just because of heroes. This is a story where their heroes are saved by humanity. And damn, I agree. But I think I also understand why 3.3 did not hit as hard as 3.1. In 3.1, the emotional tension was built around a very strong revelation. First, the Aemeath was connected to Rover through this parent-child relationship, and the second revelation about the Aemeath sacrifice and Rover's origin. It had the tension of mystery, and then we had a payoff leading to a huge climax. I believe 3.3 tries to do something similar, especially with the Roya puzzle and the traces left behind by Aemeath and the others, but it does not carry the same emotional oomph, you know? I believe it could have been shown harder. For example, I wanted more of Lahai-Roi fighting for itself. I wanted to see what was happening on the ground while Rover and Aemeath were facing Aleph 1. I wanted to see side characters fighting, protecting people, holding the line, and doing something active while the final battle was happening. Because the thesis of people saving hero is great. But then show me those people. Show me the scale, show me the threat reaching the academy. I appreciate that Kuro gave us interactions between the characters we know. I love that Sigrika had an important part in solving the puzzles. I love that we got messages in the wavelines showing the progression of other groups. And honestly, I was actually not disappointed with Jisa being quiet as some other players were. I mean, maybe that's because she strikes me as a very introverted girl who is still trying to fit in after her time in Honemi. We also see that actually when she is around people she feels more comfortable with, like Linie and Sigrika, she does talk more. But maybe simply her fighting in first lines would do wonders to her character. I guess we'll never know. I think the final chapter needed more visual proof of everyone's effort. For example, Mass Effect 2 did something similar very well. At the end of the game, we are on a suicide mission of destroying the Collector base, being a threat to the entire universe. We, as a main character, choose which companions take care of specific tasks to ensure the success of this mission. And between important sequences, we get a brief moment showing the consequences of our choices. And of course, I understand that choices like that would not be possible in Wuthering Waves, but I still would love to see something maybe inspired by this structure. Like, for example, during the final battle, when the Rover and Aemeath is facing Aleph 1 in the void space, we could also see Aleph 1 threatening the people on the ground. Like, I don't know, sending some forces and turning the danger into something that happens on all fronts, not just something everyone talks about, because that would make the theme hit even harder. If your story says that people save the heroes, then show me those people. Show me the academy burning. Show me the battlefield outside of the final boss area. Show me that this victory is happening everywhere, not only in the place where Rover is standing. Hiyuki is actually the perfect character to carry this whole theme of people saving heroes instead of heroes saving people, because to me, Hiyuki is like Rover's wounded reflection, maybe even a version of Rover from the past, or at least a version of what Rover could have become if the weight of saving everyone completely broke them, because in Hiyuki's eyes, Rover is like a savior who can always keep moving forward. The person who arrives, carries the burden, saves the day, and somehow is still standing on their two own feet. But Hiyuki tried to save people too. She tried to protect Ashinohara and she failed. And that failure eats her every day, bit by bit. So now, as the last Miko of Flaming Sakura, she starts seeing her own future as something that she can simply spend, something that she can burn, something she can sacrifice again and again as long as it means someone else gets to live. This is exactly where the Grand Architect is so sure that the whole presentation of Rover as the unshakable here will work to achieve their plan of a controllable Trinodian resonator in a Hiyuki's person. Because Hiyuki feels something very human, something that all of us felt at least once: jealousy. The jealousy that makes sense narratively. Rover represents everything that Hiyuki wanted to be. So when the Grand Architect steps in and basically asks, why should Rover be the only savior of Solaris 3? You deserve the power to be able to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Grand Architect hits the most sensitive part of Hiyuki. But after spending time with Rover, after learning more about them, Hiyuki does not learn why Rover is so special. She learns that Rover was never doing all of this alone. Yes, Rover was there, but Rover was also moving forward with others, thanks to others, and sometimes they were failing. She starts to understand that the world is not doomed as long as the people are still willing to fight together. And yeah, she's strong. Yeah, she is special. And yes, she is a protector, but she does not have to carry this burden alone. And that makes her one of the most emotionally interesting characters in this arc for me. I don't know about you, but that's for me. She's someone who had to learn that destroying herself is not a way to prove that she matters. So when I see her part in 3.3, it actually not only makes sense, but gives emotional impact to the character of Rover. And I don't know, maybe teased why Rover chose to erase their memory. Who knows? 3.3 was not perfect, okay? Aleph 1 needed more visible terror in my opinion, although I have to admit the final mech fight was satisfying as hell. I mean, was it predictable? Yeah, kinda yeah. I think the moment we saw Exostrider, most of us already waited for a big mega fight. But you know what? Sometimes predictable does not mean bad. I mean, sometimes predictable means, yeah, give me exactly what I wanted. Although I am not a big mecha fan, I had a blast. The pacing needed more breathing room, and I still think that the finale would have been even stronger if we saw Lahai-Roi fighting on the ground while Rover and Aemeath were facing the void. But even with those flaws, I think this is one of the most satisfying conclusions Wuthering Waves has delivered so far. And I will be honest, after 3.0, I was kind of scared. I was not fully sure where this arc was going. But you know what? I can admit when I was wrong. Because for me, Lahai-Roi is, as of right now, one of the Wuthering Waves' biggest narrative successes. But now I want to hear your thoughts, Starlights. What was your favorite part of the 3.3 main story quest? Or did you already forgot everything about this quest because we just got a Cyberpunk collab information and, your brain is somewhere else now? Valid. Anyway, let me know down in the comments. Also, do not forget that you can download my 1-year anniversary wallpaper completely for free on Ko-fi, because yes, this is 1-year anniversary for me as well. The link is in the description. And as always, stay cozy, stay shiny, and I love you so much, Starlights. Bye!